Ultrahand is one of the best new features in Tears of the Kingdom, giving you a tremendous amount of creative freedom to build all kinds of useful constructs. So I decided I'm going to try to just beat the game using only Ultrahand constructs. I'm not going to deal damage to anything unless it's an Ultrahand construct. I can't attach a Zonai device to my shield and call that a construct, because that's more fusing, but I can technically just drop a flame emitter and hold it with Ultrahand and hit stuff with it, and that's technically a construct, just a very small one. We're gonna try to beat not just the game, but all the temples and bosses with only Ultrahand machines. So basically the only rule is that I can only deal combat damage with an Ultrahand construct. This should be obvious, but spoiler warning. This video shows all of the bosses in Tears of the Kingdom. The Great Sky Island went well. I avoided combat altogether and just used a few speedrunning techniques to get through it faster. Oh! I did it! I did it! What? Once I was off the Great Sky Island, it was time for setup. And boy was there a lot of setup. First I grabbed some Zonite and a large Zonai charge. Then I went to a bunch of different Sky Islands to grab fairies and load up on Zonai devices from a few different dispensers. And finally I stopped by a Blessing Shrine to grab a diamond. Now, using the pre-1.1.2 sort duplication glitch, I had an infinite amount of Zonite to fund auto build, large Zonai charges for unlimited battery, fairies to keep me alive, Ow! As many Zonai devices as I could ever need to build constructs, and enough diamonds to buy me any weatherproof armor I would need. Now that all the setup was done and I had built a hover bike for travel, I was ready for my first temple. I decided to go for the water temple first, since most of the temple can be skipped with the rocket shield trick. I forget how to do this. I remember how to do this. Alright, well, that's that handled. Finally, it was time for my first fight, against the Sludge-like. This was actually a bit more of a pain than I expected it to be. He ate it! I used a hydrant to clean the sludge off of him, and then had a construct head with 2 beam emitters and a cannon attached to deal damage. This actually did very, very little damage, and since I couldn't stun the Sludge-like, he was sniping me constantly. Thankfully, I had enough fairies to make me immortal. About halfway through the fight, I realized his true weakness was flame, so I just held a flame emitter to his face and took him out in no time. This is the way. At this point, I decided to grab the champion leathers and the Hylian shield so I wasn't getting one hit constantly. A short time later, I made it to the Muktarok fight. This fight was fine, it just took a little while for me to find a good strategy. Oh my god. Oh my god. I finally settled on using a hoverstone with some construct heads, beam emitters, and cannons to float above the arena and shoot him. Then I just ascended up to the snook where I could take cover behind my shield. The only frustrating part was that my contraption dealt damage so slowly that I kept getting bored and looking away. Oh crap. Wasn't paying attention to battery again? How come no one yelled at me? You guys are slacking. I need to show you this clip real quick, just so you can see how happy I was at this stage of the challenge. Hey, we got another heart, let's go! Thank you, Daniel. Now it'll feel more impactful when you see me tilt off the face of the earth later. I want to die, I want to go home. Next up was the lightning temple, because I felt like I already had a good plan for it. I knew the Gibdos were weak to elemental damage, so I knew I'd be able to take them out easily with flame emitters. What I didn't know is that there's a couple stages of the questline that require you to destroy the Gibdo spawners, which you're supposed to do with Riju's ability. I tested a few different devices to see if I could destroy the spawner, and I wasn't having any success, so I prepared some technicalities. Technically, the challenge says that I can only do combat damage with Ultrahand constructs, and combat damage implies that I'm damaging an enemy, and technically it's an enemy spawner, not an enemy, you know? So that's one technicality. Even if we consider it an enemy though, and consider it combat damage, technically, if I use Riju's ability, I'm not the one doing combat damage because my arrow doesn't actually damage the spawner. It would be Riju's lightning damaging it. So, thankfully, chat came through with one last suggestion. So for the siege of Karakara Bazaar, I made a couple flame emitter Roombas to deal with the Gibdos and protect Riju while I used a cannon to take out the spawner. Oh, it works! Okay, cannon worked. For the siege of Gerudo Town, I focused on the spawners and then protected Riju with a single flame emitter. I made my way through the lightning temple and arrived at the Queen Gibdo fight. This was probably the easiest fight of the challenge. I just laid down a flame Roomba, pulled out my own flame emitter, and just followed Queen Gibdo around doing pretty decent damage. In phase 2, I did have to pull out a cannon to deal with the spawners, but otherwise it went the same way. With 2 temples down, I decided to tackle the Wind Temple next because I knew Colgera would be a pain in the ass. But even knowing that wasn't enough to prepare me for how mentally taxing this fight would be. My mental health is deteriorating at an alarming rate. That's how I am, Captain Briggs. I am not well. I kid you not, this fight took about 2 hours because it was so difficult to come up with a working strategy. We tried so many things. Construct heads don't lock onto Colgera's weak spots, so those were out. Then I tried just flying around with a bunch of different configurations of cannons, as that was the only device that could reliably break through the weak spots. The only problem is you need 2 cannon shots, one to take out the ice barrier and one to take out the weak spot, and the cannon fires so slow it was incredibly challenging to hit the same target twice in a row. After 45 minutes, I called it quits and ended stream for the day. We're gonna come back to this tomorrow, see if we can do it. And when I started up again the next day, my save put me on one of these floating platforms, which gave me an idea. I could just hold out a cannon over the edge and shoot Colgera's weak spot twice when he stopped to do his spike launch attack thing. He keeps stopping where I can't see him, but I'm pretty sure I'm hitting the right spot. Okay, got a weak spot. This actually worked incredibly well until phase 2. Not only did he shoot tornadoes at me that were very difficult to dodge, but he also did his spike attack from much further away, so it was a lot harder to shoot him. I still managed to take out 2 of his weak spots with this method, but his third and final weak spot was always just slightly out of range, so we had to come up with another plan. I don't think it's hitting, I think he's too far. After 30 more minutes of brainstorming, I finally just glided over the weak spot and dropped a few time bombs on it, which managed to break the ice and take out the weak spot. Does that count? I just dropped like 4 of them. I think that counts. Oh god. Great suggestion, Happy. I'm so glad that worked. I'm gonna say that counts. I can't do this anymore. Next, I made my way to the Fire Temple, but in order to get Yunobo into the temple, you have to take out Miragia on top of Death Mountain, and Marbled Rock can only be destroyed with Yunobo's ability, so I had to skip the Fire Temple entirely. Full transparency, I also decided to skip the Spirit Temple because I was running out of time and had to finish the challenge. So now it was time to make my way straight to the Hyrule Castle depths to do a mini-boss rush and then fight Ganondorf. But first, I needed to grab something that would help me defeat Ganondorf. At the Construct Factory in the depths, you could find this unique Ultrahand item in the right leg depot. This item is actually glitched a little bit. It confuses enemy AI and can cause them to just use the same attack over and over, and it's unbreakable and protects you from damage while you're inside it. So I used this design that I found in a Small Ant video so I would have a safe turret that I could mount to a wall and it'll do all the damage for me. Now that I've got this auto-build design favorited, it's time to head to Hyrule Castle. The fight against the Demon King's army was easy. I just used a frost emitter to freeze the enemies and then had my flame Roomba break the ice and burn them. This is beautiful. Now I had to fight Marbled Goma, the Seized Construct, Phantom Ganon, and then finally Ganondorf. Don't get me wrong, these fights individually were easier than the Colgera fight, but fighting them back to back like this brought me all the way up to Colgera level tilting. Brother, come on. This is ridiculous. The first phase of the Marbled Goma fight was easy. I was able to use my unbreakable turret to do all of the work. But in phase 2, the explosive rocks he dropped would hit my unprotected backside and make the turret unusable. After 15 minutes of tilt, I can't handle this. Oh my god. I discovered this was actually really easy. You can just stand on a hoverstone and hold up a beam emitter to hit his eye, and since you're in the air, none of his attacks hit you. Next up was the Seized Construct fight. This fight was pretty similar to the Marbled Goma fight, in that there was an easy solution, it just took me a long time to find it. Alright, well that answers that. If you get too high up into the sky, he just whips out his own Glock and starts blasting you. This fight took 45 minutes in total, and I tried so many different things before finally discovering that I could just lure him close to a wall, freeze him with a frost emitter, and then shoot him 3 to 6 times with a cannon to knock him into the wall. Turns out the simplest solutions are usually the best ones. Damn Ultrahand. Now it was time to fight Phantom Ganon, which was pretty easy, but also probably the scariest fight. It was scary because I was running low on fairies, so I had to dupe them mid-fight to survive. But Phantom Ganon made that hard. The actual strategy for this one was super easy. I would just drop a few time bombs and either shoot one or let one of the phantoms hit it to activate it, and it would just deal a good chunk of damage each time. Finally, it was time for the Ganondorf fight, but I was prepared for it. I auto-built my unbreakable turret and mounted it to the wall just inside the arena. Then as soon as the fight started, I used Ascend to get inside the turret and just let it do the work. For the most part, this was very easy. I only ran into a couple complications. First was that as soon as you get on the turret, Ganondorf would stand in one spot and try to shoot you with his bow. But if he was standing in a spot that my turret couldn't see, I would have to jump out and lure him into a different spot before retreating into my hidey hole. The second complication came at the beginning of Phase 2. Ganondorf was standing out of sight of my turret again, so while I was jumping out to lure him away, he shot the stake holding up the turret and then destroyed the beam emitters, construct heads, and steering stick as soon as it was on the ground. So while he was kicking my ass, I clumsily attached a stake and mounted the turret back on the wall. Then I got up there and manually rebuilt some jank construct heads with beam emitters. I wasn't able to replace the steering stick since I was standing in that position, so I just had to do a better job of monitoring how much battery I had left so the turret wouldn't deactivate. Before long, Ganondorf was defeated, and it was time to fight the Demon Dragon. The Demon Dragon fight was super easy. I just built a little square of beam emitters, which was kinda hard to do on the Light Dragon's head, and then I would just auto-build that square at each weak point to destroy it. So that's it. I beat every single boss and most of the temples in Tears of the Kingdom using only Ultrahand Constructs. Wait a minute. Oh no, Link's ruining it! No, Link, please use Ultrahand. I know this is a cutscene, but I need you to use Ultrahand right now, please. Stop this. This is madness, Link. Son of a... I'ma still count that as a win though. Thanks for watching.